Hey guys, welcome back. So we're out here today at the gorgeous Magna Golf Club here north of the GTA. Huge treat for us to be out here, especially since we've got access to this unbelievable range. We thought we'd take advantage of that and go in straight into the wedge fit.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Right, so let's talk a little bit about your wedges to start with, Matt.
So I've got completely off the rack stuff.
Yep.
So I've never done a wedge fitting, period.
Never?
Never, no.
Okay,
Just kind of played around. I have some wedges at home that I played around with just to get a rough gapping.
Yeah.
So I think my yardage gapping is okay, but I know it's not good, which is what we're going to do today. We're going to focus on set composition for wedges.
Exactly.
Talk about how to actually work out your bag after the pitching wedge.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Why don't you run us through kind of the process you take a wedge fit through?
Well, you've nailed it there. So we are obviously going to start off with looking at the yardages, making sure they all go the appropriate distances, and that starts with knowing how far your set wedge goes.
Right.
Some people might like a Vokey or a kind of specialist pitching wedge, but quite rare.
Yeah.
So you use obviously your own
iron set
pitching
one,
wedge.
yeah.
Yep. And so we're going to check out that one, see how far it goes.
Right.
Not that many options in terms of the bounce and kind of the sole configuration down at the pitching and gap wedges. That comes later in the sand and the lob wedges.
So these are pretty standard in terms of that they blend with your iron set.
Correct.
But it's more of a full swing club for me, so I think it's okay.
Exactly.
But
let's kind of just start hitting a few shots. What's your stock yardage on pitching wedge?
I usually hit it from 140.
Okay.
If it's a little downwind, I may try to juice it a bit.
Yeah.
And I can choke down on it a little bit, but 140 is my standard.
So for Matt, at the distance he hits it, everyone who obviously as your speed changes, the distance between clubs obviously has to change with that.
Right.
So the further your driver goes, basically,
the
wider your spacing is. So how far you hit it, your iron spacing needs to be about 12 yards.
12 yards.
Yep. And then down in the wedge spacing, we might actually see it be 12 to 14 yards.
Right.
So we may see pitch and wedge at 140, 145, give or take. Then the next one we might see around 130 on the gap wedge, then maybe around 115 to 118 on the sand wedge, and then about maybe 105 in the lob wedge. Right. That's kind of knowing your game as well as I do what I'm expecting to see.
Okay.
Uh, 139 carry, 143, 144. Average in 142, right what we thought. Perfect. Really, really good stuff. Launch and spin was super consistent, around 21.5, 10,500 spin on average. Good baseline numbers. So that's what we're working with, and then we're going to build around that now. Okay, so let's kind of grab a wedge, and we need to try and get something that's going to be around that 128 mark. Okay, Matt. So based on your own yardage and how far that one was going, 142, we need to try and get about 12 to 14 less, somewhere in that window. So we're going to kind of nicely progress you up 4 degrees into a 50-degree wedge. Right now your pitching wedge is at 46, so we'll continue up. Now, you've got a bit of leeway with wedges because depending on what you like your most lofted wedge to play at, might be 58, might be 60, you might want to go 46, 50, 54, 58. You might want to go 52, 58. So many different ways you can combo it. But let's start with this SM7. 50 degrees, 12 degrees of bounce. We were getting a little bit steep on the angle attack there, so it's about 7 degrees down. Yeah, angle attack 6.2, 7.1, 5.5. So 6.5 on average. Okay.
So a little extra bounce helps with that.
Little protection.
Gotcha.
On average there, 125. So we had 142, 125, 17 yards, a little bit much. Ball speed was quite a big jump. There was about 10 miles an hour difference between pitch and wedge and gap wedge. That's probably the gap that we want to close down a little bit. Okay, so let's grab you something where we're going to produce a little bit more ball speed. We're going to go with the Rotex 3 from Cleveland.
Okay.
And that's a really nice segue into an interesting point nowadays. sometimes the specialist wedges don't always keep up with the modern day iron set.
Right.
Because the way the iron set's designed, obviously with distance in mind and that sort of thing, wedges are not designed that way. So we can often see, even though the loft progression is correct,
Right.
the head design doesn't really allow the gapping to be what it should be.
And how much of an influence would these shafts be having? Because obviously the stock wedge shafts that we're using, quite a bit softer than what I've been fit for.
Yeah, not too much.
Probably not much ball speed
Not
wise.
too much ball speed wise. More on your timing and that type
Yeah.
of thing, Matt, just from the weight. Okay, so we had 125, almost identical numbers. The Cleveland spun a little bit more for you. Average ball speed was 101, exactly the same. Very, very similar, so not too much difference there. I would go at this point towards looking at the 50, struggling to get up to the pitching wedge. I'd weaken the pitching wedge.
So we look to weaken the pitching wedge a
would.
degree to bring
Yes.
them closer.
Bring it a little bit back, bring the pitching wedge. I think we saw that one at average 142. So I'd bring the pitching wedge back, dial it back to about 138, 139. Then that'd be absolutely fine. Out of both, I mean, there wasn't really much to choose from. Out of both, which did you prefer out of the two wedges?
I did prefer the Vokey, just shape-wise.
Yeah,
But
a little more offset in the Cleveland.
I can see the
Yep,
offset, yeah. Which
definitely.
for me, because I tend to pull it sometimes, is not ideal.
Okay.
Nice wedge though. Nothing wrong with it.
Going into the wedge fit, we've got 3 spots left.
Which I do.
Which
Yeah,
is ideal.
Which I do.
Yeah.
And unless you get the player that can, I mean, there's very few tour players. We've done the Y in the bags.
Yeah.
Most of them have the 3 wedges.
Yeah.
You get the occasional guy with just 2, but that player is really able to finesse shots, and I'm not that kind of a player, and I think most people aren't, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're happy with I mean, in terms of the performance.
Yeah, the 10 degrees of bounce and the 50 loft, I think, to me, those felt perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump into the sort of next one up.
Okay.
Okay, so I think already from what we've seen, our selection is going to be RB54, RB55, and RB60. 56 probably not.
Yeah.
55 less likely, and 54 probably.
Probably,
That's kind of what my mind's saying right now.
That's kind of what, and I've been using a 58 as my highest lofted for a while, and I'm liking it.
Okay.
So I think I'd like to keep the 58 and make the gap with this club work.
Guys, you'll see me every shot, that every time Matt hits shots, I clean the grooves, I clean the faces. A club with grooves that are full of dirt and obviously, whether it be kind of the residue of grass on the face, we'll lose friction, we'll increase launch, we'll decrease spin.
Yeah.
The wedge will stop performing as it needs to.
We've seen some amazing results on the
Yeah.
quad.
I know.
When we were out on the range one day and we saw, wedges spinning at half what they should and stuff like that.
Well, do you remember I had you hit 56-degree wedges that were spinning at 3,000
Yeah.
and you're normally 12,000?
Exactly.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
So the difference that we get, the correct friction on the face. So many people will go, how do I spin my wedges? The first thing I'll always say to them, use clean wedges.
Clean wedges.
Clean
And
wedges.
relatively new, like they don't have to be brand new, but
They don't have to be brand new. We'll probably do a little testing
Yeah,
further
we will.
down the line
will.
on actually the function of the groove. Right. This one will shock a lot of people. The groove doesn't perform in the role that people think it performs. People think the groove has sharp teeth and will spin the ball. Actually, a club without grooves on a dry ball and a dry kind of sort of area will spin more. So no grooves will spin more than with grooves.
Really? In a dry situation?
In a dry situation. In a wet situation, disaster zone, right? So the ball just skids up, and the spin just plummets. So the grooves are designed to work like tread in a tire. So they're designed to disperse the mass, to get the ball and the club face to be as close to one another as possible so that we can increase friction and start to get the ball to perform as we want it to. All right, Matty, 54, 10-degree bounce,
Yep.
S-grind, full sole with trailing edge relief. Nice if you do like to open it that little bit that the sharp trailing edge of the wedge doesn't. cause the leading edge to come off the ground. That's the purpose. This is a real favourite of mine. I think you'll see so many guys play a 54 or a 56 in the S grind. I find that's the best, most used grind at this area of the bag.
Because once in a while I'll use this loft for a long bunker shot.
Yeah.
So it's good to have that little bit of trailing relief.
That's right, and you know, for people to realise that when you open the club a little bit on that, you actually add a little bit of bounce.
Yes.
And obviously the way the sole interacts, you know, the grind interacts with the sand, can either cause it to kind of bounce up, or it can cause it to glide through a little bit more, which is better.
Gotcha.
Excellent. Right, let's have a look at this.
That's a better hit.
Yeah, 114 there.
Yeah, that's a much better hit.
Okay.
Just more compressed. The first one was maybe a little glancy.
You're going to see the average right on about what we want. It's 111.
Okay.
So right now we're looking at, so the spacing being we're going to be 138, 125, 111. So we're seeing a nice 14-yard progression. We said 12 to 14 was acceptable. We're right there. We're absolutely fine. So no problems with that. Okay. Comfortable through the turf, everything
Liking
what
it
you're
so far.
seeing?
So I mentioned to you before we started filming, but this is a bit more bounce than I have in my current kind of mishmash that I use.
Okay, what do you have on that one?
My 50 only has 8 degrees.
Sure, yeah.
And I think my 54 might
Is it 54S? Is it the same S?
No, it's a Callaway. It's not.
Oh, it's a Callaway one, okay.
I got a bit of a mixed bag.
Right.
I think it has 9 degrees or so, but the bounce on and the sole on these two, I just feel I didn't chunk any, that's for sure.
No, you definitely didn't. And if you mishit it at all, you lost like a yard or two.
Pretty consistent.
Pretty good.
So I'm seeing a lot of improvement that way for sure.
Definitely. Okay. So here's into the interesting part. This is where kind of sole grind and stuff gets much more, I guess, important, interesting. There's much more options. Tell me about what you need in that area of your game.
So I currently I play a 58. I think it's an M grind. Must be an SM5, older model. I'll use that club most of the time around the green. So I'll open the face on that one, I'll use it in the bunker, I'll hit some chip and runs with it. So I guess to answer your question, probably a versatile club is what I'm looking for. But I will take full swings with it too, for like a 95-yard shot, 100-yard shot.
Got it. Okay.
So the 58 I've been using for about a year. I used to use 60. I just find the 58, I guess I used to come up short a fair amount with the 60, and I just didn't need that much loft. So I went down to a 58.
Okay.
So generally speaking, I think I obviously want to dial in the wedge further with the grind and the shaft and such, but that loft I think is pretty much what I want.
58.
I think so.
You think so? Okay. And that's always the interesting conversation with guys on that, is that, you know, whatever their preference is, with 58 you have to be very comfortable laying it open and you know, kind of laying it down. You've got to be very versatile. So again, picking the grind is obviously hugely important. Okay.
So let's see how far we're probably looking for this to go 95,
We need this one to go about, I mean, somewhere in there, Matt. What I'm liking the look of right here is the kind of familiar ball flight that we're getting. So I'm looking even just at the peak height of them. Your last 6 shots have peaked at 29 yards, 29 yards, 30 yards, 29, 29, 29. You're flying through them, exact same window. Launch and spin are fluctuating a little bit. So you know, you're either launching it sort of low with high spin to give it lift, you're launching it higher with less spin to kind of flatten it out. But it's flying through, and those are the variables we all deal with. But your eye won't really detect those differences. So this looks good. So in terms of the yardage gapping, we're going to have the nice progressive gaps. Now it's a case of how suitable is the wedge around the green. So let's do that. Let's take it to the green, guys. When it comes to the yardages and that type of thing, this is how we go through it. A lot of full shots. You might want to, you know, if we had a bit more time, we want to try and condense the video as much as we can. You might want to hit some half wedge shots, see how the spacing comes and that type of thing. And you also want to do that in the ball fit as well. You want to make sure those half wedge shots, which ball performs the best on those two. I think, you know, same as the way we do our process, this is where it starts. So, you know, this makes sense to have this as video number 1, and then we'll sort of progress past this. Excellent. Guys, thanks so much. We'll see you again soon.